Iron Minds, episode 31. Today with Chris Mayberry, talking about the Tough Mudder that we just completed on Saturday. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Trey Griggs here, Beta Consulting Group, and we are back for another episode of Iron Minds. Even though Saturday we completed the Tough Mudder, and they always say the second day is worse, I feel great today. Super excited to be with you today. And Hayden Allred, our good buddy who's here almost every week, is on assignment today. He is at F3 in Chattanooga, going to be there, and was not going to be able to make it with us today. So we got a special guest today. In fact, somebody who competed in the Tough Mudder Charity Challenge with us on Saturday in Dallas. 9.2 miles, 30 obstacles. Almost felt like we were going to die at one point. Pretty crazy time. We're going to talk about that with our good buddy Chris Mayberry, going to be joining us here in just a minute. And today I think it's all about just getting some movement back in, getting some stretching in, making sure this old body of mine is ready to go for the rest of the week and moving forward. So let's go ahead and bring Chris Mayberry onto the show. Chris, what's up, buddy? How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm definitely feeling it. But to your point, I am feeling better. You know, I remember when I did this in 2014. I don't think I could walk for 3 days. It was a little rough that first day. That night, like, you know, getting up, standing up, there was a lot of things popping, cracking. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling better. So my main goal for today really is just stretch out, try to get things limber again. That's pretty much it. So for me, it's all in the hips,
Yeah. And I was concerned because I, after the Tough Mudder, I jumped on a plane at 6:30 and flew, back to St. Louis for 2 hours. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm just going to sit there in a cramped plane, not moving my legs or anything, and it'd be brutal. But it ended up not being too bad. I was able to get home and stretch out a little bit, take a hot shower, and before I left, I could get to Hayden's house, take a hot shower before I left, and get ready to go. And I think that helped out a lot. But it was good, man. We need to talk about this. It was quite the day down there in Dallas, Texas on Saturday. For those that are not from the Midwest, you know that you can get just about anything when it comes to weather this time of year. We could have had an 80-degree day. We could have had a 30-degree day. We ended up with about a 55-degree day, which is not terrible, but also not very important when you're running at overcast skies. It was wet, obviously Tough Mudder, but it was a little rainy, and two of our competitors decided to go shirtless, which maybe was a good idea after you think about the nipple chafing that we experienced. But it was good. Now, what were your thoughts there as you kind of got to the starting gate, and did some of that come forward? Back in the 8 years since you did your last one, what were your thoughts there?
Well, I saw Raquel's post, and she was talking about how she was, having almost second thoughts as far as whether or not she was going to go. And I was looking at, we're looking at the weather reports, looking at that the parking, may be really, really hard to even get there. It might get stuck. And I'm just like, oh, do I really want to do this? And I was like, all right, I can't make all these posts about embracing the suck and, pushing yourself and past your comfort zone. And then I get a little uncomfortable, and now I'm like not going to do it. So I think once we got there, I think I was definitely, a little bit more ready to go, and just got moving. It's just like, hey, I made this commitment. We're going to do this. I'm not backing out. Unless they tell us to go home, I'm not backing out. And so, yeah, man, I think once we got there, it was pretty cool. I feel like there was a little bit of some nervous energy from, I think, a little bit of everybody, or like we didn't really know what to expect. It felt so dry when we got there. When we first parked, I'm like, man, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then we start walking out there. I'm like, oh, okay, here's the mud. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, there was plenty of mud. Yeah, it was great. I'll tell you, having Sean Corbell there. If you guys don't know who Sean Corbell is, you should look him up. just YouTube or Google Sean Corbell, and you'll see why he is the starter for the Tough Mudder. Dude's so inspirational, so positive, and we just had a great time with him before we got there. And some cool things at the starting gate. So we were in the starting pit when the first one's off, minus the Infinity runners who were the first group off. But I thought what was really cool was 3 things. There was a 66-year-old woman who was like fired up and ready to go. And that just inspired me. It's like,
yep.
How could I even make an excuse, right?
Yeah, no excuses.
66. She's doing this with her grandson. It was like, that was cool to see. I enjoy seeing that. And then, and she was just a blast. Everybody was just like patting her on the back, and she was an absolute blast. What's up, Scott? We're talking about it right now, buddy. We were in the starting pin. There was a 66-year-old woman in there. It was so cool. Fired up about that. Then there were, and it is stretching time. Then there were 2 people that were celebrating milestones. You remember that? So
we're celebrating what?
Milestones.
Yeah. The 75 and 100.
Yeah, there was this woman there that was celebrating her 75th Tough Mudder. She had to be probably also in her 60s at least.
Yep,
and
I would agree.
I was like, wow, 75 Tough Mudders. Then a guy who honestly didn't look like he was in the best shape. I mean, he wasn't like he was terribly out of shape, but the opposite, he wasn't ripped. But he was celebrating 100. 100. Afterwards, I was doing the math. I'm like, that's 4 a year for 25 years. Which I don't know if he does 4 a year. I don't know if he does 10 a year. I don't know how he got there, but 100. That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah, that's probably like I feel like that's like you're hitting every Tough Mudder since the day it started almost.
Yeah, that was a lot of Tough Mudders.
Many years, a lot of Tough Mudders. Yeah, I mean, I remember when they said 100, even the 75. Like, I'm expecting it to be this. If it's an older lady, like I thought she was going to be just ripped, right? Like super. The ladies where you're like, I mean, I've got a friend of mine. His mom like is so ripped. I'm like, I'll look at her arms. I'm like, what? Like I should have arms like that. It's just impressive. Like when you see somebody, and then you saw her and you're like, no, she's kind of average, right?
Yeah.
And then same with him.
Clearly not.
Yeah. So you're just like, so I think that a lot of that has a lot to say about the mind game that I think Tough Mudders are. There's a lot of it is mental. But because, your body kind of, I felt pretty strong. I think mile 5, mile 6, once we hit to about that 7th, 8th mile, when my hip flexors, my hip abductors were locking up on me. And, cause I felt like there was a moment there where I was like, man, I feel like I could outpace everybody pretty easy. And then once we hit about that mile 8 or 9, I was like, all right, I'm just literally trying to keep one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. You get to that point where I remember about the same point, about mile 7 or 8, I had to literally tell my feet to relax, because then I wouldn't get the Charlie horse in my calf, my toes would curl up, which I learned from last time, because last time we did it, my toes started curling up, which is a weird sensation, one that I hadn't really experienced before. Yeah, they started curling up, and so I had to talk myself through some of that. Plus, some of the obstacles were pretty gnarly. Most of them were realistic, like jumping over hay bales or stuff like that. But there were a couple, man, that were pretty gnarly.
Yeah, was it the cage crawl?
The cage crawl was the worst. Oh my gosh! Both serious bets up there. Yeah, for those who know what a cage crawl is, imagine a bathtub, but a really large bathtub, so not very deep, maybe 4 feet deep. But it's a bathtub, and then on top of it are chain link fence sections. And you only have in this case, you only have like 2 to 3 inches of space between the chain link fence and the water, which is not safe. Normally it's like 8 inches. Anyways, you gotta crawl on your back. You gotta try to keep your nose and your mouth above the water, close to the water.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, when I got into that and realized that I couldn't come up with breath, man, I I can't straight finger coast. Just think about that afterwards. Like I still looking back, I cannot believe I did that entire length, which is probably, let's say 20 yards maybe.
That's right. I was saying anywhere from 15 to 20 yards.
Yeah, it was probably close to 20 yards in one breath.
Yeah.
If
you watch that video, Cage Crawl, right? They're holding onto the fence and they still got plenty of space to breathe the whole way through. And there's no tarps, right? Like they were doing tarps every other section, which in my opinion, I think it made it even hard. You could see, and I think it made it even harder to breathe because that's holding air away basically. But yeah, like I remember when I first got underneath there, I tried to bring pull up against the chain link fence and keep my mouth as close to it as possible to see if I could breathe. And my head was completely submerged in water. And so, for me, what I had to do, I had to kind of pull through all the black sections where I couldn't see. As soon as I'd see light, I'm swimming with my eyes open in super murky, dirty water. I'd see the light. I'd have to stop, push up against the chain link fence, get a breath, come back down. And I did that for the 4 or 5 sections that it went through. The fact that you did that in one breath, as cold as that water was, like I was really like, I had a moment where I was like, am I going to die? And I was like, nope, don't focus on death. Just get out. Just keep moving. Just keep moving.
Yeah. I literally had the exact same feeling. I mean, I remember being under going, is anybody watching this? Does anybody see me? There was that feeling of like, if I don't make it out of here, is anyone going to get me out of here? Because I don't know if I've ever felt that way before, but I can imagine that's the feeling if, like, let's say you fall in ice, right? And you can't find the hole.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's terrifying. And that is kind of what. So I took the survey, and that was, I said, hey, I had a great time. I think you guys did the best you could given the conditions. Because I know there were supposed to be more vendors out there, and the whole setup was a little messed up here and there. But I think they did I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I just said, hey, y'all need to keep more medical staff. Probably near Cage Crawl, and I would say that was way overfilled. Y'all needed a water pump to bring some of that water down,
or put some things under the fence.
To lift up, lift them up a little bit. I agree. Yeah, one of the two. And then I also mentioned, and then Everest. Like I mentioned, Everest was pretty rough too. Like it was way more rough than it was the last time I did this. I made it up. I made it up the first time in 2014, but this one, I didn't even try.
I made it up too, and I remember, the rope was really, really slick. But okay, that's fine, Tough Mudder. It was slick. Got up there, the guy at the top that grabbed hold of my arm could not pull me over, and I'm 170 pounds, he couldn't help me get over. Yeah, and the other guy just wasn't ready either, and so I ended up slipping out of the grip and falling down and ripped out my hands pretty good, and my knees. Now that the mud is gone, I've got these massive scrapes on my knees from sliding down. And of course, Hayden had the same experience, smacked his head, and almost went unconscious there for a while. Scott says it sounds like his basic training. Yeah, I imagine this that one section, Scott, was probably similar to that. I can't claim that anything else is like your basic training. I've never been through it. I won't even compare it to that. That one moment, I was really freaking out. So it was pretty wild, that's for sure. But all in all, looking back on it, a lot of the obstacles were fun. They were challenging. The ones that I think that I was most pumped about, which I knew I would be, were the grip challenges. Oh, you got the shirt on. Look at this, man.
Yep, already got it washed.
Look at that, everybody. I got to highlight Chris here. Look at this. Look at that, everybody. That was our game shirt right there. We went with the long sleeve, which wasn't too bad. But
I was the one late in the game. I was like, all right, this baby's got to come off because things are getting chafed.
That's right.
Yeah, my wife saw the aftermath and she was like, "Oh my God, babe."
What happened? Yeah, so shirt rain, probably not a good idea, but
I was a little scabbed up to say the least.
Yeah, but for me, I think the acrobat exercise is the funky monkey, which, man, that's still eating me up, dude. I didn't make it through that. I'm so frustrated about that. I got 2/3 of the way, but man, that ring was so slick, I just couldn't hold on. But that was fun. And then a couple of the other ones, I really love those. Those things are great. All right, so let me tell you something real quick. So I've been thinking about this. Like, here's what I typically do after a race. All right, after I complete a race, I say things like, "I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to just eat whatever I want. I'm going to take a little break, whatever," and I lose momentum. And so I was at church yesterday, and the buddy that I trained with for this, his name is Tim Handyside, good friend of mine right here in the neighborhood, goes to my church. And he was like, "Hey, how's the race? How'd it go? You know, what was it like?" And I was telling him all about it. And he goes, "So you still want to keep running? Want to run on Tuesday?" And I was like, "Yes. Yeah, we're running." So tomorrow we're right back at it. We're going to keep running. And I think the biggest thing for me, this is the biggest challenge I have when it comes to physical health, is making it a way of life and not necessarily like a only for training for an event. Like making it more of a way of life. This show has helped tremendously for that, but I'm excited about that stuff. So I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to get right back at it. Get after it. Plus, we're going to do more of these. I already bought 4 more passes for this.
Nice.
So afterwards, when you went and dropped the key off, Walker, there was a tent right there for Tough Mudder, or for to sign up for the next one.
Yep.
And we had bought 4 more passes, so we're going to do more of these. Talking to Raquel about it. There's one in Pittsburgh next year, which we'll probably do that one since they live in Pittsburgh. We're looking at maybe Miami and then St. Louis. So this might become a little bit of a tour for us to get after. Maybe we'll get closer to that, 75 at some point. Just never know. It might be the way that we go. So.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned, well, and it's not just the tendency, I think, of people, if they train for something and then they're like, all right, I worked so hard, I deserve this, I deserve a break. But especially around the holidays. And so I'm listen to this guy. I used to do some of his like bodybuilding.com app workouts. This guy named Jim Stepani, if you ever followed many bodybuilders, Jim Stepani is this like really tatted out guy. I think he has a PhD in kinesiology and some similar like sports science type medicine. So he's a pretty big guy, but he's actually pretty intellectual. And he was talking about how sports supplement companies, their sales just completely plummet during November and December because people basically just decide to take off those 2 months. Because they're like, well, I'm going to eat like crap anyways. Like, I'm just going to enjoy the holidays. I don't want to work. I don't want to push myself. And so it's very common for like gym memberships dry up over those months. People
or
just like, they literally, like attendance. Yeah. If they don't stop their membership, then they just at least stop going. I just thought that was interesting because I didn't realize it was that big of a problem. Because he was talking about how he's had all these conversations with all these supplement companies and just about how they could, try to increase their sales during these specific months. And so he was saying he has this like, it's like the Stepani holiday challenge or something like that. But that just got me thinking of like, I don't want to just take it easy over the holidays. I don't want to just stop pushing myself. Because I completed 1 Tough Mudder in a year. Like that's not conducive to creating the quality of life that I want to create, which to me, that's why you do this, right? Like I want to be able to chase my grandkids when I'm older. You know? I mean, exactly. My dream is to be, like Jack LaLanne, right? Who was in his 70s, I think he was like jumping in water and pulling boats with his hands, cuffed behind his back kind of stuff. Guys like him are the kind of guy that I look to as like the model of fitness from a physical standpoint. So,
yeah. And I think it's important to have that in mind, like have that vision in mind of like, what, this isn't necessarily going to maybe benefit me today as much, but if I do this, it'll benefit me tremendously 10 years from now, 20 years from now,
Yep.
whatever it might be. And having that mindset of just showing up every day, and seeing kind of where that takes you. I think that's part of growing up. Starting to think about things correctly and all that. So, listen, Scott, if you're still watching, man, we got to get you doing this stuff with me, bro. Got to get you jumping in. Be a part of the team, man. This stretch right here is the one that I wish I knew about this stretch 20 years ago that started in all this thing. They're so bad with the head flexors.
Oh, yep.
It hurts.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, that hurts. Whew. Gotta get more flexible, that's for sure. That is for sure. All right, so which obstacle from the Tough Mudder was like your favorite? Because that was cool. I'm glad to get down. That was fun.
Man, that's a tough. I mean, I feel like all of them were. I mean, the grip challenge, the grip challenges were just hard for me. Like, it's just something that I'm gonna have to work a lot more on to get to a point where I feel like I can get through as many as you did. I think you did what, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6.
The grip ones? I did all.
Yeah,
I did all the grip ones.
Yeah.
The only way I didn't get the
complete
funky monkey all the way, but I completed all the rest. Yeah.
You still got what, 50, 60% through that? I mean, you were almost all the way. Okay, yeah. I mean, way. I grabbed like 8 handlebar, and I was like, this bar is too thick for my lack of grip strength to get me up this incline. Like, this isn't happening. But I don't know, the hay bale type stuff, that was fun. I think the funnest one overall was I can't remember the name of it, but it's where you had to get in the water and you had those big, huge rotating squares.
Oh, yeah, that one is fun. That's a lot of teamwork on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can put that one up. But yeah, that was really, really fun where that block is rotating. You got to work together to get that thing moving and get everybody over.
So you grab it while everybody else is pulling you up, and then you do that quick kind of maneuver where you slide over and grab the other side and then pull it down. Right. Yeah, that was fun. That one was pretty cool. I don't think the super tall climb one was there in 2014. I don't remember anything being that high. That was pretty cool. I mean, as tall as it was, I mean, I will say, even me, I was like, I'm not usually that afraid of heights, but I was kind of like, there was a moment where like, man, this would really suck if this net broke. But
that one, and then climbing up those 2x4 or 2x8 logs, 2x8s that were climbing over, that was pretty fun. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. But yeah, the one in the log roll, whatever it was in the water, that was pretty enjoyable.
That was.
Sure. And honestly, just the starting gate. I mean, we were running the plains of Texas, and it was pretty cool because we ran for like 10 minutes before we got to the first obstacle. And you look over and you realize the starting gate is way over there. We've already ran, pretty good distance away, but we can still see it. We can still hear the music. Another thing I liked about this one too is I like the fact that the course is more like a figure 8, which brought us back to the village halfway before we went up for another loop and then came back. It was kind of cool to run back through and feel the energy of the village. If you've ever been at a Tough Mudder out there, the Mudder Village is where it's at. There's so much energy, and it's the starting line, it's the finish line, it's all right there. There's vendors everywhere. There's music playing. I mean, there's a lot of energy there. So I enjoyed that aspect of it quite a bit. That was pretty fun. The one I think I liked the most from a teamwork perspective outside of the rolling log was I like the one where we were on those like unstable kind of diamonds, and you had to hold hands.
Oh yeah,
go
that was
across.
Cool.
And then at one point you have to actually jump across to another one and keep going. And I think both of us, we all made it through, which was pretty cool. We didn't fall off, which we got really close, but we didn't fall off, and so that was pretty cool. And Pete was there.
Yeah,
we got to meet him, so that was cool.
Yeah, me and Hayden, we both had to take a step. That transition section we did, like, there was a moment where we had to like step off and then get back on. But it was a good camaraderie. That was also fun. The team over at Think Metal, that was like running. They were pretty much running alongside us almost that whole time.
Yeah, shout out to the guys that think
really,
metal.
Yeah, really cool guys.
Amarillo, Texas.
I think at one point they were rocking some 1,000-foot crutch and some other older Christian
music going.
Some old school Christian rock bands that I used to listen to.
Yeah, that was cool. It was fun running with those guys. And by the way, they were mid-20s, so that makes me feel real good, man. We were keeping pace with some mid-20 guys rocking through there. We did it in 2 hours and 45 minutes, which was, our goal was to get sub-3. And so to go to 2:45 was great. Scott, we missed you, man. Wish you'd have been there. Do send some pictures from the church trunk retreat and the rest of your weekend, man, for Watts. We have a great show this week, by the way. Ellen Boy of Women in Trucking is going to be on Word on the Street this Friday. Super excited about that. So it's going to be great. But, Chris, what I'm excited about, too, is this is like something that, you and I have been connected on LinkedIn for a little while. But this is something that allowed us to really get to know each other. And I thought that was really, really special, getting to train and keep each other accountable and have good conversations. We've had multiple conversations outside of this now about life and family and work and those types of things. And just getting to spend the day with you, go through that experience, go to lunch afterwards. By the way, shout out to, what was the name of that place? Was it
Hofbrau?
Hofbrau. Yeah,
Hofbrau in Granbury.
Steakhouse in Granbury, Texas. That place was good. The filet. My goodness, that was so good. And our waiter, man, he brought it out real quick. I think I tipped that guy $20 because I said, hey, you get food out to us quick, man. You're going to get a good tip. And that guy was on it, man. He brought it out quick.
He was on it.
Thankful for that. But, just the experience of getting to hang out with you and now really feeling like, hey, we're friends. We're not just connect on LinkedIn, not just following each other, but now actually friends. And that was really, really special. And I'm very thankful for that now that we got that experience.
Me as well. Yeah, me as well. Yeah, really it's easy to kind of get tunnel vision when you work for a specific company or even if you're your own business owner, right? For me, I've always been the type of person I want to understand every avenue and aspect of business. So, you being more on the marketing side, Hayden he's now kind of more aligned with the asset-based side of the industry. Getting to hang out with other people who are on the shipping side, right? And just understanding their life stories and, hey, how did you get where you're at? And, what do you do when you come across these challenges? And how do you what's your thought and perspective on life in general, right? So my neighbors across the street have given me kind of a hard time because, and maybe it's been like a God thing, but we very, very quickly have gotten to know our neighbors. And, I'm talking to the couple across the street and I'm like, so I met this person and and I'm giving them the names and I'm giving some backgrounds of like, oh yeah, this guy played for this like famous ska band that you might have heard of. And she's like, she's like, we've been here for years. How do you already know so many of the neighbors? And I'm like, well, I've just tried to make an effort. And, but maybe
so
it's it's like, maybe for me though, too, it's, I want to be intentional with the way that I approach people. I want to get to know the people that I can. I think we're only here for a short period of time. I certainly want to try to do my best to inspire others to work a little harder. And then of course, hey, I'm a Christian and I might want to try to talk to you about Christ at some point.
Exactly.
What is it? I think it was Penn and Teller or Penn who had this quote where he talked about, he's like, if you actually as a Christian believe what you believe, you're kind of a horrible Christian if you're not out there telling people about Christ or out there telling people about Jesus or talking about him. Like why wouldn't you do that? So do you just want people to die and suffer? I'm like, no, of course not. That's silly. So yeah, it's part of who I am, and it's definitely much of where my identity is, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to end with this, Chris. So one of the things about this was it was a charity challenge. Talk about our charities real quick. So for me,
awesome.
The charity that I was supporting and I'm going to continue to support is a charity in St. Louis called Soup Strong. What they do is they provide financial assistance to ALS patients. As some of you may or may not know, ALS is a terrible way to die. It's a degenerative disease. Your muscles your whole body just stops working, but your mind remains sharp. And most of the time you end up starving to death because you lose the ability to actually eat processed food. And the accommodations at the end of life are very expensive. So, a wheelchair or any type of physical accommodations, but also the ability to communicate. Once you lose your voice and your vocal cords, having technology to be able to communicate is very expensive, and most of it's not covered by insurance. So dying from ALS is not only a terrible way to die, it's a miserable way to die, but it's also an expensive way to die. And so what we do is we raise money and then we give money to people who are diagnosed with ALS, because once you're diagnosed, that's it. There's no coming back. There's no cure. There's no nothing that comes back from that. And so it just becomes expensive. So we supported Super Strong. If you'd like to donate, if ALS is something that is on your heart, or you're in the St. Louis area, just would help local residents here in St. Louis, go to soupstrong.com, hit the donate button, and you can donate today. We appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for all they do, and thank you for supporting the charity event that we're doing. Chris, your charity, go ahead and talk about yours.
Yeah, so Blue Haven Ranch. I'm actually good friends with the president's husband. So Blue Haven Ranch is based out of Denton County. Their focus is on basically providing housing and therapy through hydroponic farming for mostly single mothers, many of which are basically coming out of some sense of either human trafficking or they're escaping an extremely abusive situation. For me, I think Scripture tells us to remember the widow and the orphan, right? And I think it literally says pure and undefiled religion is to remember the widow and the orphan, or to take care of them in essence, right? I'm not saying it word for word. That's kind of my boiled down version, but so I know that for me and my wife, there are specific aspects of what we would consider the least of these in society, much like your own organization, Trey, that we want to make sure that when that day comes, that we have to stand and give an account to Christ. We have to stand and give an account for our life. We want to be able to say, hey, we did our best to try to take care of those who were considered the least of these. So those who are in prison, those who again would be orphans, widows, those who just don't, for whatever reason, are not able to take care of themselves. I'm not talking about people who have the ability to work, who choose not to work. But I'm saying those specifically who, for whatever reason, have just had a really hard life, and need help. And there's a lot of them out there. So. Right.
How can people learn more about that?
Yeah, Blue Haven Ranch. I believe it's either bluehavenranch.com or .org. If you just Google Blue Haven Ranch, it should be one of the top search results.
Okay. All right. .com or .org, Blue Haven Ranch, which is cool. I love that charity. It's awesome. And Raquel and John had a great charity as well. And so did Hayden. So check out their page. I know that Raquel put some posts out there, just things like that. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and wrap up with this. Chris, man, appreciate you being a part of the charity challenge on Saturday, and just your friendship, man, and for jumping back on right in on Monday morning and jumping in. It's awesome,
yeah,
buddy.
Sure.
I appreciate you. Let's have a great week. Also, everybody, it's Halloween, so enjoy today. Enjoy some trick-or-treating with the family tonight if you're going to do that. And also come back at 10:30 a.m. Central today. We got a special edition of Halloween. If you're wearing a costume at work today, then you should come on the show and show it off. All right, come and show it off on the show. We're opening up the show today. Anybody wants to jump on, we're going to have a lot of fun with that. Scott, thanks for watching. I appreciate that. Scott says this. I love this. He says, our role is as this, be the beggar that told the other beggar where to find food. Man, I love that. That's really what it is.
Amen.
We're not better or worse. We're just, hey, we found some bread. Let me show you where it's at. That's what it's really all about.
Right on.
Which is a cool analogy considering that Jesus said he's the bread of life. So everybody out there, have a fabulous day. Fabulous start to your week. Remember, iron sharpens iron, so sharpen one another. And we will see you guys next week for episode 32 of Iron Minds Power
Awesome.
Group. See you guys. Peace out.
Y'all have a great week. Bye.